Okay, welcome. Welcome to our podcast. And I'd like to introduce you, Dirk Corstens. You can say something more about yourself, Dirk, in a moment. I'm Robert Stamboliev. I'm working with voice dialogue and I've been training people since many years. And we now have a conversation about voice dialogue and voice hearing. And Dirk is the expert worldwide now in how to work with voice hearing. Um, Welcome, Dirk. Do you want to say a few words about yourself?
Thank you, Robert. Yes, I work as a psychiatrist. I'm not, I have my private practice after I worked in all kinds of institutes for 40 years. And during 1992, I was working with Marius Romme, who we will talk about later, uh, on the subject of hearing voices. And that was also the period that I met you.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Quite recently, we met each other again when our film, My Word Against Mine, was screened and won a lot of national and international prizes. And that film is filming voice hearers, five voice hearers, different voice hearers who have conversations with me in a voice dialogue way. I talk with them and their voices, and it's a very impressive film, I think. And at the same time, uh, around February, we finished a big research project in Manchester, what that was led by Eleanor Longden, who is a psychologist and a voice hearer. Um, and in this project, we compared, or they compared, 150 voice hearers who got the treatment, talking with voices, and 150 voice hearers who didn't get the treatment. And my role there was to supervise half of the therapists, together with Eleanor Longden, and another two supervised another group of therapists, and the results were appeared to be very good, even better than CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy with psychosis, where
Hmm.
this research team is working with for almost 30 years now. So a very successful outcome, and it appeared that this can be used in daily practice in mental health
Hmm. Yes,
institutes.
wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's quite a journey from 1992 to 2026, and I'm very glad that I learned to know voice dialogue, and that was really a thing to use that with voice hearers.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. So that's so interesting. That's something that starts as an intuition. I think it was in 1987 that Marius Romme had the intuition that perhaps the voice hearer, the client, Patsy, was actually right, that she was actually
Yeah,
hearing the voice, that it was not some hallucination. And then he did this show on, he was with Sonja Barend on national television
yeah.
as a first social psychiatrist asking the public for help with that. Huh? Yeah.
That's so fantastic. That's really Marius Romme. That's really social psychiatry. That you are humble in the sense that you know that you don't know the answer, but you go to the general public for the answer. And in this show, they asked for help from the audience, and 700 people reacted, which is unbelievable. And that's the start of the Hearing Voices project that I uh, joined almost 5 years later.
Yeah. Well, I'm
But
also,
you have a history with Marius Romme too.
yes, I have a humble role in this whole project, and I'm happy to share because not so long after the that show and that they really realized that voices exist, people hear actually voices, and you cannot get rid of them. Then the next question, of course, would be, well, how do we deal with it if we cannot sedate them with medication? So we need to cope with them. And I think then Marius was looking for in the alternative circuit and in other therapies what could help. And at some point, he came across the book of Helen Sutter Stone, Embracing Ourselves. And he was in communication with them, I think, by writing and telephone. And then he approached me in Amsterdam. I was at the time teaching voice dialogue in 88, spring 88. He registered for a course. That was also courageous.
Yeah,
We didn't stay in his ivory tower. He came with his partner, Sandra Escher, and they did a course with me, a 2-day course in Amsterdam. And they were actually, going into their own, like say, voices, inner voices. They were not hearing voices, but they were experiencing the method. And after that, he asked me, well, would you be willing to do an experiment? And they selected the experiment. I said yes. The experiment was to have 10 voice hearers, each have 10 sessions with voice dialogue with me, and then also a colleague of mine, a dear friend, Jerien Koolbergen, who passed away some years ago, clinical psychologist. And I also a few other people with some background in therapy who were facilitators. And then over a year time, we facilitated about 10 people. They were interviewed by Marius and Sandra before they had the voice dialogue, and then at some point during and at the end. And the results were very positive. So that was like a mini study. Um, but I know for some people that the number of voices diminished. Was one guy had 56 voices and he
oh,
ended up with 6 or 7, and they all learned to cope better with the voices. Um, for me, that meant I had to adjust the way of using the traditional voice dialogue, which is very much about sub-personalities, to be flexible. Because most clients with voice who hear voices that we encounter, they don't see it as sub-personalities. They say it's my
yeah, yeah.
father or my spirit or whatever. And I think I was able to do that because I'm also trained in energetics, and because I think when I was younger I had experimented a lot with psychedelics, and in for spiritual development. So I was not so surprised to have people in an altered state of reality or have voices.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I could just hang in there and communicate with them. And
But did you publish the results or
no, it
you
was in,
didn't?
well, what happened is they asked us to present it at congresses,
Uh,
which we did. I made some overview, like I think the first one was in 1989 in Maastricht, and there were a few of the congresses where Jeroen
okay.
and I both shared our findings.
Yeah.
And so he took it step by step, Marius, and the next step was to say, well, then we should train our staff with this. So then I went for several years. I went to Maastricht at the RIAG, and every time we did a demonstration session, and that's where we met, Dirk.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I started training the people that worked there. Sometime I would do a demonstration session. But the way I work with voice dialogue is let's say, in a flexible way, using the principles, never go into a discussion with the client that it's a subpersonality instead of
Yeah,
his grandfather or whatever, to hang in there and uh, adapt to the reality of the client.
yeah. I remember the first time I joined you and Marius and Sandra was that Marius told us, me and some colleagues, next week we are going to work 5 days with Robert, and you have to provide us with clients.
Okay.
So we did, and it was really, really fantastic. I, I saw you working with the woman and the snakes, for example, and I saw your uh, enthusiastic way of working with her snakes. And after the session, she told me that this was the best conversation she ever had. But she also said he doesn't believe that I have snakes, which was nice. But it helped her a lot in the sense that she could accept that someone else could be curious and at the same time have another perspective on reality. I think that was for her very helping. But I saw with other people, we worked with some really uh, big changes in only one session. So that experience of these 5 days, which we repeated, I think, a year later, 2 days or so, but that was for me the reason to
Mm,
become very enthusiastic, because we we had tools to work with the voices.
yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, so that was really then the ball started rolling, huh?
Yeah,
Let's
yeah,
say and so then you got yourself, you studied voice dialogue with us in Bergen,
yeah,
and I think you also did a course here in Schorl.
yeah. And I met Helen Sidra.
Yes,
Very, very impressive week was that. Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So um, I'm also curious, how did you, because I worked with you guys till about 2000,
yeah.
and we're now in 26. So how did it develop further? And did you draw some conclusions? Is there a model? I mean, I read something about it, but maybe you can, explain it.
Yeah. Um, First, I had two very positive experiences with two different clients, and I described this work in an article in a Dutch journal,
Mhm.
and I remember the reviewer, the editor. He told me, "This is really great work, but can you leave voice dialogue out of it?" And
Okay.
I said, no, no, it's either with or not. So then he accepted that I would describe in that article voice dialogue. And that was in 2003, 2004. And so
Okay.
you can imagine how controversial voice dialogue was in that time. And uh, I knew the editor a little bit, and he was, in general, quite open-minded person. But the description of voice dialogue he found a little bit too far-fetched from the evidence-based world where we are in.
Do you think that what is the reason that the people are a little bit scared, or the, let's say, the established science finds it difficult, this concept of self?
I think it changed in due time, but at that time, it was also the time that therapists were afraid of psychosis, were afraid of voices.
Mhm,
It's
mhm.
although at the same time you see next to voice dialogue, you see, for example, uh, schema therapy coming up, which is it's also working with parts. And
Yeah,
I think when the schema therapy movement became more accepted, then writing about voice dialogue was much more accepted. And but I didn't answer the why because I they think it's too vague. Energy. What is energy? The word energy. That I think if you see you working, you see energy.
yeah, yeah.
And I think if you see me working too, that's
Absolutely. I saw the movie,
yeah,
and I really, really liked the way you were doing that, and that was energy work,
yeah,
and also using principles, because you
yeah,
would shift sometimes to just a slightly different mode, or you would go along with the voice, but at some point you would confront the voice.
yeah,
So like very intuitive and energetic, I would say. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And so, but the next article was in 2007, together with Eleanor Longden and Rufus May. We presented in a English journal 5 cases. And people got interested. I met some people I was invited for a round. Rufus May made a film back then with a famous actor. Ruth. I forgot her family name, and it's called The Doctor Who Hears Voices. And funny enough, Rufus didn't have experience by then with voice dialogue, and he went to in discussion with the voice about the interpretation, which is beautiful to watch in the film that it doesn't work.
Okay.
Later he went in voice dialogue courses, and he still uses it in his practice. But then there was a round table where Rufus and I were invited as people who work in a relational way with voices. And other people do too. But the voice dialogue approach is relating to the voices. And in other relational approaches, it's more about learning to become assertive, uh, learning to ignore voices. And we go straight into the protective qualities of the negative voices, for example.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, yeah.
and that's so different from all the other. The avatar therapy is now also very popular, but it's indeed helping, which is okay, helping a person to become assertive, but they don't go into the positive qualities of negative voices.
I think that that must have to do with the identification of the therapist.
Yeah,
If the therapist is identified with, let's say, the fixer or the
yeah,
help, then of course you want to help the client, or you're going to be directive.
yeah,
Um, if the facilitator, the therapist is identified with the mind, they will want to understand what's going on.
yeah,
So
yeah,
in voice dialogue training, it's always a refinement from where does the therapist work, where
yeah,
in oneself. So that in itself is a very nice topic. From where do
yeah,
you do your work? If it's not only the helper or not only the mind.
yeah.
And yeah.
which is understandable. A voice hearer who suffers from his or her voices wants you to stop it. They are desperate.
Yeah.
So a psychiatrist who has a medication as toolbox believes that he can help the patient to get rid of his voices, which is sometimes true, but most of the times it doesn't work at all. So, as a therapist or voice dialogue practitioner, you have uh, to accept that people want to get rid of their voices on the one hand, but you also have to uh, persuade the person to investigate what is happening, and to find ways to relate in a different way to voices, and that's the core
Yeah.
of the work we do, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's some people who see me working for the first time ask, is this hypnosis or not? Or, hey, this is relational therapy, which is true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think that's um, that makes it so different from other approaches.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
In the research project, we do not only do talking with voices, but we do some steps before which are important to mention, I think. In the protocol, which is 28 sessions, that's sometimes more than enough, but most of the time not enough. But yeah, in a research project, you have to limit yourself. But the first phase is to help the voice hearer to cope with overwhelming voices, to develop a personal toolbox. What can you do when the voices are becoming too overwhelming in our session?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So you help a voice hearer to develop a personal toolbox to stay calm or come back to a safe situation. That's the first few sessions. The second uh, phase is to develop a construct. That is, you try to relate the voices to the life history of the person. And you try to find what the problems are underneath the process of voice hearing. And when you have rounded up that, then you know a lot more about the voices, and how a voice hearer is coping with their voices. Then you can start directly or indirectly relating to the voices.
Okay.
And after that phase, we have a phase to close the sessions and to transfer what we learned to other people, family, for example, or other support workers.
Okay. So that's what you call the construct. That find out where does the voice, when did it come in somebody's life, or
Yeah,
okay.
and what or who do the voices represent? Often the voices are related to people who did something uh, in the life of
Yeah.
the voice hearer, or and often there a problem is aggression or sexuality or all kinds of troubles that you can solve, perhaps, instead of you have the diagnosis of schizophrenia or all
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
disempowering language that
So it's
is used.
empowering to
It's
find.
it's really empowering. And now we did some research projects. The last is with 300 people, but we did also one with 50 people. And we interviewed both the therapists and the voice hearers, and both were very enthusiastic about this empowering way of communicating with the voices.
Mhm,
Yeah.
mhm. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, thank you. And that's clarifying. I have another question. I understand that's like 1 on 8 people or so hears a voice, or 1 on 10. I read different numbers.
Yeah,
Uh,
me too.
and from these many people, that's 1/3 has some problems with it,
Yeah,
and 2/3 not.
yeah,
Okay. So in the research, are you working only with people that have problems with it, or
yeah,
okay?
yeah.
Because I would
And
be, yeah.
that would be a very interesting group. And we did when Marius and Sandra Roma started all this. They they organized conferences. And the first two conferences, there were almost no people with a psychiatric background.
No, but this is so because I came in 1988
Yeah,
with this,
yeah,
because I did several workshops with people who hear voices, but there were some extraordinary experiences there.
yeah,
Like um, I worked with a, a woman who was in her daily life, she's a paranormal therapist, and she would have a voice that said would wake her up in the night and tell her to go to the bridge there and there. And there was somebody was about to jump, and like she was like a spiritual, let's say spiritual voice.
yeah. A spiritual medium. Yeah,
And it was amazing because I'm so happy that I don't need to know what it means, if it's true or not true, or
yeah,
if
yeah,
so I'm like pragmatic, but I do feel energy. And this part of her that was so giving her these orders, it was so powerful. It was standing in the room, it was in a training setting, and she said they're from some planetary system. And I cannot call it the name now, but just they were from these planets, and they said we, and there was such a power and authority from these voices, and
yeah,
everybody in the room was impressed. The problem for the client was that the voices wouldn't respect her night rest, so she
yeah,
would almost be burned out because of the intensity of these voices. But from the point of view of like what is a human being, I found that very interesting, and I had more experiences with people that are not suffering from the voices, but just dealing with them, sometimes out of balance. And I also these voices like to be brought in the relationship to have a. They like to be interviewed and
yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Uh, th- we did this research project in the early days where we compared voice hearers with a psychiatric diagnosis and voice hearers who never were patients. And perhaps I met the same woman, but I met 15 of these people who most of them were indeed paranormal therapists. And
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was amazing what these people had to, the experiences these people uh, talked about. And it was also remarkable that for all these groups, the first time they started to hearing voices was had a tremendous effect on them. That it was frightening to hear somebody calling you or telling you things. But in this non-patient group, we call them, people found their own way. They were not, they didn't stay afraid of it, and
Mhm, mhm, mhm.
they could be more open about the experience. It was not so negative as with the other
Yeah, yeah,
people.
yeah,
Recently, I met people in Brazil, and there is a big movement on spiritism,
yeah, yeah,
and this is also voice hearing, but in a in a completely different way. And I hope to present something about this spiritism on the next World Congress on Hearing Voices in Denmark, together with a Brazilian psychologist
mm,
who knows a lot of more about mediumship and in his family too. And it's such an interesting perspective and
yeah,
experience. Much uh, it looks like other voice hearing experiences, but it's much more positive and helpful in a way for other people.
yeah, yeah.
It's so interesting. Uh,
I guess that's also cultural, huh? Like some cultures, like you say, Brazil, they're more open to this, and then perhaps it's easier to live there when you hear voices than
yeah.
in Holland.
The funny thing is that when you read about Brazilian Spiritism, they refer to France in the 18th century, where the script 19th century, where the description of Spiritism was very precise, and this was transported to South America,
Hmm.
in Brazil especially. But everybody refers to this French. I
Okay.
don't remember the name. Spiritist, and I know from other research that Spiritism at around 1900 was very popular and very not only popular but also very much researched. And we even used a big research project from that time to show that hearing voices is a very common experience.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so, and that was also my conclusion when I spoke to all these non-patient voice hearer. It's also in our country there is a subculture of voice hearers where voice hearing is a way of is a gift
Mhm,
is
mhm.
a gift to help other people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So it has a
And
positive connotation.
yeah,
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 yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, interesting. Yeah. Well, makes me enthusiastic again about this topic because, like, voice dialogue started as a way to explore consciousness, and
yeah,
that attracted me in those days. And it's so nice that it can also be used in psychotherapy and coaching and to help people.
yeah,
But it's basically an exploration of consciousness, and that's what Helen Sidder Stone, that what they did, getting to know each other, and along their life, there were not other voices coming in, like the pensionado, the old part, um, like the core would be that exploration of consciousness with
yeah,
side effect that it helps people.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And I hope that the film and our work with people who we can consider psychiatric patients um, help voice hearers going to voice dialogue therapists,
Yeah.
and that they can avoid to become psychiatric patients.
Yes. Yes.
That's a dream I have.
Wonderful. Is there, because I'm training, our institute, we train people to learn voice dialogue in Holland, but also elsewhere. What do you have any advice for voice dialogue facilitators when they want to work with voice hearers? And do they need specific training or something extra? What do you recommend?
I think you can expect very um, negative voices, and mm, you must learn to deal with your anxiousness about that. And it's very normal when a voice is very negative and is attacking you, which sometimes happens, that you learn to deal with that, that you know your own parts very well, and that you can deal with that, and that you can go into the same energy. I think that's
Mm.
very, very important with strong negative voices that, for example, represent predator behavior.
Okay.
I think you must feel some affinity perhaps with it, um, and it's important to really believe that hearing voices is a natural, normal experience. Because if you think in terms of this is somebody with schizophrenia, it
Or
doesn't work.
hallucination. Yeah.
Yeah, that really doesn't work. Um, so you should be firm, but not denying your own fear.
Yeah. Because that can
You,
also be an advice. Well, maybe I shouldn't go in there right now, or should wait.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I think these kind of things you can learn. You must learn to negotiate also about your own safety.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not only the safety of the person or the safety of the voice, it's also about you. If you cannot trust the people, the voice and the voice hearer you work with, then you must work on your own trust. And that's
Is that,
different, I think.
do you have some examples? Because this is like, that's why it takes longer to learn voice dialogue than some other methods, because
Yeah,
it needs to be embodied. If you
yeah,
work with, let's say, a killer, the facilitator needs to have access to that part of herself or himself.
yeah.
And are there other, you say predators, what kind of voices can the voice dialogue
Uh,
person expect?
um, I have a beautiful example. I also wrote it in our book, and I have a video of it. This was a man of 50 years old, 55 perhaps, and he used to be a sergeant in the Foreign Legion
Mhm.
in France,
Okay.
a British sergeant, and it's for a Brit to become a sergeant in that army, then you must be very hard boiled. Then you are really a killer.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he did all kinds of secret missions, and he became psychotic after one of his best friend was killed in South America somewhere that he couldn't save. And then after that, he became a psychiatric patient, heard voices. He heard voices all his life,
Mhm.
appeared
Mhm.
during our conversation. But he had very firm voices. And my perspective on him was, oh, this guy is a professional killer. I, I really must be very good in negotiating, and I must uh, uh, negotiate about my safety.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
He was very motivated to deal with his voices, and we worked with him in a course of 3 days. So we really learned to know him, And when we started this work, he appeared to be more afraid of the voice taking him over and hurt me than perhaps I was that he should do something to me.
Mhm.
And we negotiated about how it would be safe for him to let his voice talk
Yeah.
with me. And my colleague, Eleanor Longden,
Mhm. Mhm.
was his secondant in a way to help him to stay grounded. And when his voice, when we were both feeling safe and the voice too, we had a great conversation where the voice and this really killer critic voice became very open about uh, what had happened and
Mhm.
what he how he tried to save this person and to help him to survive instead of helping him to kill himself. So it was a real fantastic uh, uh, conversation um, that helped him a lot. I followed him a few months later, and it was really a transformative uh, experience for him and for me too.
And could you access that part in yourself, that killer?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
At a certain moment, I was not afraid anymore
Yeah. Yeah.
to experience, and yeah, it's yeah. I think that was very important for us to work together. That I could stay firm
Yeah.
and was
Yeah.
not afraid anymore of his. And I knew a soldier when he tells you uh, a deal is a deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
A
Yeah.
man is and that gave me strength. I could feel the soldier in
Yeah.
myself. If
Yes.
I promise something, I always will do that.
Okay.
And
Okay.
that was what made me uh, feeling safe enough to work with him.
Mhm.
If he,
Mhm.
if and that's in a way
Yeah.
uh,
So
what. Yeah,
it's actually I hear two things. One is you have to match the energy
yeah,
and and also take care of your own vulnerability to be in touch with
yeah,
that. And actually, the third one is to set the good limits for the session, to
yeah,
negotiate how far you can go. And yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, well, seems like we covered some topics.
yeah.
Is
So I hope that voice dialogue practitioners uh, want to be want to learn how to deal with voice hearers because I think it's there is a big potential.
yes, yes. Well, I'm
Yeah,
very motivated again, especially since that beautiful movie, the documentary, My Word Against Mine, and to hear you about the research that's now, after all these years, actually very happening in
yeah.
England. So yeah, from this side, we will take some steps as well.
Okay,
Um,
great.
Thank you, Dirk. I think feels quite complete, and
Yeah,
I think we will add some literature and stuff to the video. People want to read more and or the find the movie.
yeah. Okay. Thank you very much, Robert.
Okay,
See
bye
you.
bye.
Bye bye.